In a crowded Harris County courtroom, a prosecutor tried to bury a felony assault case with a $500 fine, claiming the victim, Sarah Jenkins, had vanished and refused to cooperate. But the state's narrative collapsed when Sarah stood up from the back of the gallery, where she had been waiting for hours. Judge Miller didn't just reject the rushed plea, he called out a blatant violation of the duty of candor, proving that justice isn't a high-speed assembly line where the truth can be ignored for the sake of a clear docket.
On June 12, 2024, Marcus Thorne was charged in Harris County, Texas, with felony-level aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. However, during a routine Monday morning docket, the state presented a plea agreement that seemed surprisingly lenient, a reduction to a misdemeanor, disorderly conduct, with a mere $500 fine and no supervision. The prosecutor, citing unresolvable witness issues, assured the court that the victim had vanished and was completely uncooperative with the investigation. In the high-speed machinery of the Texas criminal justice system, cases are often resolved this way, moving files off the desk to keep the wheels of the court turning. But as the prosecutor leaned into the microphone to finalize the deal, a hand went up in the back of the gallery. The missing victim, Sarah Jenkins, had been sitting there for 3 hours, ignored by the state's staff. What follows is a staggering breakdown of Rule 3.03 of the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, which mandates absolute candor toward the tribunal. Gemini said in the state of Texas, the courtroom is not merely a theater for negotiation, it is a sanctuary of candor. Under Rule 3.03 of the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, an attorney is strictly prohibited from knowingly making a false statement of material fact to the court. This duty is the bedrock of the legal system. When a prosecutor stands before a judge, they are not just another lawyer, they represent the state, carrying a unique burden under Rule 3.09 to act as administrator of justice rather than a mere advocate. This means their primary goal isn't a high conviction rate or a cleared docket, it is the truth. Furthermore, Article 56A.051 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure grants victims the statutory right to be informed of all court proceedings and to confer with the prosecutor regarding plea deals. When these two pillars, candor to the bench and the rights of the victim, are ignored, the system doesn't just fail, it becomes complicit in a lie. Judge Miller's eyes narrowed as Sarah Jenkins approached the bench. "Mr. Prosecutor," the judge began, his voice dropping to a dangerous, low hum, "you just stated on the record that the state's efforts to contact this witness were exhausted. You said she was non-communicative." The prosecutor began to shuffle his files, his face flushing a deep crimson. "Your Honor, there must have been a clerical, don't you dare hide behind a clerk," Miller snapped, slamming his gavel down with a crack that echoed through the gallery. "She is standing right here. She says she's emailed you 3 times this week." This is the moment where the efficiency of the deal crashes into the reality of the law. Under Article 26.13 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, the judge has the absolute discretion to reject a plea. Miller wasn't just rejecting a deal, he was witnessing a violation of the duty of candor. You didn't lose her, counselor. You ignored her because she didn't fit your narrative. The deception in this case was not a simple oversight, it was a calculated maneuver designed to bypass the friction of a trial. When pressed, the prosecutor attempted to pivot, claiming a breakdown in communication between the victim advocate and the legal assistants. However, this excuse falls apart under the weight of Rule 5.08 of the Texas Disciplinary Rules, which prohibits lawyers from demonstrating bias or prejudice in an adjudicatory proceeding. By characterizing Sarah as unreachable, the prosecutor essentially silenced her, treating her lived experience as a hurdle to be cleared rather than a voice to be heard. This highlights a disturbing trend in high-volume courtrooms where the rapid timeline prevents a thorough review of the case file. Much like the transition of prosecutors in the Commando case, the shift here allowed the new attorney to claim ignorance while simultaneously pushing for a rushed plea. It's a strategy of convenience that treats the victim as a procedural formality, relying on the hope that the judge is too busy to check the math. "I am not taking this plea," Judge Miller declared, his voice cutting through the stunned silence of the courtroom. Not only is this deal a slap in the face to the victim, it is built on a foundation of dishonesty. Under Article 26.13 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, the court's discretion to reject a plea agreement is absolute, and Miller exercised it with a heavy hand. He didn't just stop the proceedings, he ordered an immediate inquiry into the state's contact logs. "Counselor, you are lucky I am not holding you in contempt of court this very second," he continued, leaning over the bench. He then invoked Rule 3.03, reminding the prosecutor that a lawyer's license is a privilege tied to their integrity. Instead of the lenient fine, the judge set the case for a preferential trial date, ensuring Sarah's testimony would be heard. It was a rare, blistering moment of judicial accountability, a reminder that while the state may negotiate, The judge is the final gatekeeper of the law's moral weight. This proceeding serves as a stark reminder that while victims do not control the mechanics of a plea bargain, the integrity of the process rests entirely on the shoulders of the prosecutor. When a minister of justice prioritizes a clear docket over the truth, they do more than just violate Rule 3.03, they erode the public's fundamental trust in the system. As we saw in the Commando case, the shift from a felony to a misdemeanor can be a legitimate legal tool, but it must never be achieved through the erasure of the victim's voice. Ultimately, Judge Miller's refusal to accept the rushed plea underscores that the court is the final safeguard against administrative convenience. When communication breaks down and victims are sidelined or stereotyped as uncooperative, their role risks being reduced to a mere procedural formality. Justice is not a high-speed assembly line, it is a meticulous pursuit of accountability. Without transparency and candor, the law is just a collection of empty articles, and the courtroom is just another room.